Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? I hope you are having a wonderful time. In the previous session, we had covered some of the most important design features of language. In today's session, I'm going to move towards one of the most prominent aspect, and that is to elaborate the concept of language amongst its different lines. For example, there are certain anomalies one encounters while covering the aspect of language. So today I would be focusing on those anomalies and confusions. First and foremost, language is a very complex phenomenon. It's not an easy phenomenon to comprehend, and that is the reason why a student of linguistics and language often encounters certain difficulties and complexities which are involved in the explanation of language. So let's begin our session with the aspect of language, or those dimensions which create problems for the language learners. We are going to demarcate between the two most important language dimensions. Number one, if you look at the whiteboard, it is quite visible that I have written standard language and then non-standard language. Now, these two notions are actually the product of a human perception and construct. We already have a preconceived notion regarding language, and on the basis of those predetermined ideas and notions, we try to divide the concept of language between these two aspects. First, I'll explain the idea of standard language. Standard language is often referred to as a language which has the highest number of vocabulary. Number one. The vocabulary is in abundance. Secondly, highly codified. It means a standard language is presumably having a large number of vocabulary items. The second and the most important feature or characteristic of a standard language is that it has a highly codified structure. It means that a standard language has a dictionary, grammar, literature, books, and that is something on the basis of which we can differentiate between a standard language and a non-standard language. The very important factor about the standard language is that it is considered to be the language of certain forums. This language is never spoken in the streets, in the marketplaces, or at homes. Rather, this type of language is spoken at the university, in the parliament, or in the judiciary, at any forum which is formal enough, as opposed to a non-standard language which is considerably having a less vocabulary. It means that it is actually a variety of a standard language which has very minimal number of vocabulary items. Secondly, it is informal. It means that this non-standard language is not a codified language. It has no grammar, no books, no literature, nothing of the sort that can put it at a distinct advantage of being spoken at a forum which is considered to be formal enough. And that is the reason why, as a linguist, one needs to understand the logic of a standard language and a non-standard language. Now, after these two, I'm going to switch to another debate that often sparks controversy. There is a great deal of confusion between these anomalies and oddities. So let's move towards those topics. Now, there is some sort of confusion, perplexity amongst the language learners and even at times amongst the language teachers. They fail to differentiate between the most important factor that can be responsible for the distinction between these three parameters. So let's discuss them one by one. Now, as it is quite visible on the whiteboard, I have written three classifications. One, native language, the first language represented with the help of an acronym L1. Number two, second language represented with the help of L2. Then number third, foreign language expressed and represented with the help of FL. Unfortunately, these two have always been mixed. But the reality is that these two are completely distinct classifications, categorizations. Their compartmentalization has never been justified. How? Let me explain them one by one. Whenever you refer to the concept of native language, it always indicates that your first language, the language you acquire. So this is actually an acquired language. You acquire a language from your parents, your surroundings, because language is culturally transmitted. If I give you an example of a child who has been brought up in England and whose parents are Pakistanis, so the child would first acquire the language spoken in the surrounding as opposed to the language spoken at home, because if you reflect back on the properties of language, one of the most important properties were that language is culturally transmitted. That is why it is acquired. Our first language, L1, is always acquired. Number two, second language. In the case of second language, you never acquire it, rather you learn it. And it is also proven experimentally that you follow the same route which is followed in the acquisition of L1. So you learn the second language on the same pattern that you have been using for acquiring L1. Second language means, for example, if I quote the example of Peshawar, so over here people are mostly bilingual or multilingual. Bilingual in a sense that they are quite fluent in their L1 and simultaneously in their L2, which is Urdu. So Urdu is considered to be the second language. Why? Because it is spoken in every nook and corner of Pakistan. It is spoken and understood everywhere within Pakistan and in some states of India. That is the reason it is considered to be the second language. And the logic is that second language is that language which is spoken within a country, within a city, within a province. So something that can be understood and spoken at the same time. That is your second language. Now, what is foreign language? Foreign language and second language, they have always been confused. The ideas are completely different. How they are different? You just look at the third point, foreign language. Foreign language means a language which is not spoken in a country but has been used officially. For example, in Pakistan, foreign language is English language. Now, why it is a foreign language? Because it is not spoken by others. It is not understood by other people around. So, it is not something of a second language because it is spoken in England, America, Canada, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, but not in Pakistan. In Pakistan, it is always used at forums like Parliament, judiciary, schools, educational institutions, universities, and colleges. But in other situations, you will never ever find anyone who can speak and understand English fluently. If you compare it with the logic of second language, Urdu language is widely spoken and understood. And that is the reason why we consider and assume the Urdu language as second language and English language as foreign language. So this is the confusion that one needs to avoid while referring to these two, second and foreign language. In the case of first language or native language, it is quite clear. There shouldn't be any confusion. We all know what we actually mean by first or native language. But second and foreign have always been confused. The concepts have been overlapping. Why? Because we assume that English is a second language. No, it is certainly not. It is our foreign language. Urdu is our second language. So this is for today's session. In the next session, we'll move towards the next topic. Till then, take care, stay updated, subscribe my channel, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.